how would I suffer well? What is the theology of suffering, and how would I handle something difficult? And in a way, like leaning into I don't think God causes us to suffer, but what can I glean from this, and what gold can I take away?
Hello, welcome again to another episode in the Let People Prosper show. My name is Dr. Vance Ginn. I hope you're having a prosperous day. Well, today I'm delighted to bring on Rachel Barkley. She's fantastic. You're going to enjoy our discussion today. But Rachel, welcome to the Let People Prosper show.
Vance, I'm so glad you had me on.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. We've been friends for a long time, worked together on projects and everything else. And you know, you've got a beautiful story to tell with your beautiful family and everything else. And so we got a lot to talk about here. But before we get into that, let me go ahead and read your bio for the audience, and then we'll jump right into it.
All right.
So Rachel Barkley is really one of the most joyful, purposeful people I know. I've had the privilege of knowing her both before and after a rare spinal cord tumor nearly took her life just weeks after giving birth to her first child, who's 6 now. The surgery left her a quadriplegic, but through months of rehab, deep faith, and relentless determination, she and her husband, Taylor Barkley, who is a former guest on the show, fought their way back. Rachel continues to regain mobility and remains a steady light to those around her, motivating me and many others to pursue meaningful work that helps people truly prosper. She runs RK Barkley Consulting, so she's an entrepreneur where she helps organizations advance freedom and dignity through coalition building and policy strategy. Rachel is director of Able Americans, which is pretty new, pretty recent, where she joined them. And she serves as executive director of the Alliance for Opportunity, which is where I worked with her for a while, which is it's also a multi-state effort to move 1 million people out of poverty. Great cause there. Her experience spans Capitol Hill, state policy network, and education reform efforts. But what sets her apart is her clarity of mission and tireless drive to help others to have flourishing lives. Follow her on her ongoing journey at RK Barkley on Instagram, which is RK Barkley. So with all that going on, a lot of good stuff there, Rachel. Let me go and ask you the first question I do all the guests. Why do you do what you do every day?
Well, thank you, Vance. And I'd say the Barkley family, we are Vance Ginn super fans. So I'm really happy to be here. Why do I do what I do every day? And, it's because I've been saved by the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I really believe that, to live into abundance and that prosperity is bigger than monetarily. And I just hope to share that with other people, to have that kind of love and joy and abundant life.
Yeah, I love it. And you're right. I talk about that too a lot, Rachel. It's not just prosperity for material things. It's spiritual, it's emotional, it's psychological, physical, and there's so many different things that go in with that. Too often it gets into this material discussion, and I just don't like that. It's definitely much broader than that. You've been through a lot just over the last few years. You went through having your first baby and then the spinal cord situation and learning how to walk again. And now you have 2 more kids. You've got 3 kids now, and everything else. And, one day I look forward to reading your book. And so when you start talking about where you've come from, being back at SPN and do all the stuff you did before and how God has transformed your life to where it is today, where do you like to start? Where do you like to start with your story to get that going?
I typically kind of start with thinking about Rachel in my 20s, starting out my career, starting out life, meeting my husband. And, when the world just kind of feels like your oyster, and you have a plan A, you think this is the plan that I'm running towards in my life. And that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to have a plan. But I quickly, and I had, I always joke, I was really into my bucket list back then. And Taylor would always say, what is this bucket list? And all the things I wanted to accomplish. And I really wanted to own a home on Capitol Hill. And I really wanted, X, Y, and Z for my job, and wanted to have a baby by 30. And I was due with Hudson, our first, actually 2 days after my 30th birthday was my due. And so I was like, all right, hitting all these goals.
Yeah, you're hitting them.
Yep, knocking them out. And then it just, kind of crashed all around me. So my faith has always been part of my life. But then, 2 weeks after I had Hudson is when I got the diagnosis that I had a rare spinal cord tumor growing, and had probably been growing for 6 or 8 years. So,
wow.
I was a really fit person. I was a volleyball player. I was a tennis player. I was in the gym. I had run a marathon. Taylor and I, he got me a surfboard for our wedding gift, and
nice
surfing and backpacking and all this stuff. And I thought, actually, I'd bought him as a gift. We found out we were pregnant. I got him like one of those backpacking, hiking, baby carriers, and thought
with the baby carrier.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
This is the family we're going to be. We're going to be hiking with our baby, and really, the next year stripped everything away. Like I realized my physicality was so much of my identity, and just being able to bootstrap my way through life. Like I felt really proud that I was scrappy and I worked hard, and things worked out because of that. And then, 2 weeks after I had Hudson, literally everything physically stripped away. So paralyzed from my shoulders down.
And Rachel, whenever you had the baby, did you go home during that period, or did you stay at the hospital?
Yeah, I had no idea that this was about to hit. Zero indication. I had kind of been limping a little bit in my pregnancy, but everyone is like, pregnancy, it's weird. Right. Women limp. Lots of weird symptoms. So I had gone home after having the very healthy delivery, no issues. And almost every day after I had him, I got progressively worse, to the point where I didn't feel comfortable walking and carrying him. And then I finally couldn't walk at all. And I woke up 2 weeks after having him, and I couldn't even wiggle a toe. Like my right leg was completely paralyzed out of nowhere. And my family had to carry me into the car, and we went to the emergency room.
And Rachel, just because, I want to dig a little bit deeper into like what you were thinking, like, because I don't know. I've been through a lot of trauma and grief and different things, not nearly at this level, but you know how your mind starts going and wandering in different directions. Like whenever all this stuff was going on, were you looking up stuff on Google and like seeing what it could be? Like, I don't know, where was your mindset at that time?
Oh yeah, I actually, this weekend, I have to go get an MRI to make sure that the tumor hasn't grown back. And
okay. I'll be praying for you on that, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. It's always really scary to pull back the hood and see what's going on. And those feelings of even seeing the hospital's logo, I felt like medical trauma, medical dread. Yeah. In hindsight, I look back at this heavy feeling of medical dread of, is this something that I went into the hospital thinking I'll be out with, some kind of treatment for whatever weird thing's going on in a week. Well, I didn't come home for another 3 months. I went into the emergency room June 11th. I didn't come home till it was like September 29th.
Wow.
And had no idea that what was coming for me. But I just panic, dread. And then once they started running the test and they showed us the scan of the tumor that was in my spinal cord, just breaking down. Taylor and I had only been married for 3 years, and it was this blissful 3 years together, and wondering how do we even begin with this? Wonder if I was even going to survive. Was I gonna make it out of this alive?
And the way that the tumor was, if I remember, it was around the spinal cord. Is that right? Or
inside? So
inside the spinal cord. Okay.
Yeah, the spinal cord has a hollow center. It's very thin, and this is why you're paralyzed if you're in a car accident or whatnot, because if you sever it, it doesn't grow back. So the spinal cord is permanent, and it doesn't grow back. And so it was inside the tube, almost like a hot dog inside of a tube. I know it's kind of gross. And pushing it out. And that was damaging my nerves and eventually caused the paralysis.
Wow. And there's no way to know how it started, right?
They have it's incredibly rare. It's 1,200 cases a year, usually elderly men.
Wow.
And so it's such a small population. It's related to brain tumor. So it's a central nervous system tumor, but it's so rare that they don't know what causes it.
One other thought I just had is how was your faith? Was your faith rocked? Your Christianity and everything? Like, because some people will take big events that happen like this, shocks to the system, and some will go in different directions.
Yeah.
I turned closer, after I had my wreck and everything, I turned closer to God. But I did have a lot of friends who had some things happen where they would turn away for a little while and then come back. And I struggle with that as well. But I wonder what happened. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I had a lot of lonely nights. I mean, being paralyzed in a hospital setting.
Yeah.
My family, sometimes they would stay with me in the hotel room, or in the hotel. It wasn't a hotel, the hospital room.
Yeah.
They'd be there, or sometimes they need a good night's rest and they'd go back to their hotels, and I would be, alone, unable to get myself out of bed for things I need. I'm just stuck in that bed and staring at that hospital room ceiling alone for many dark hours. And if you've ever had a hospital stay, nurses, doctors are coming in and out, waking you up every 3 hours to test you. And, I spent 3+ months like that. And so I had a lot of time to think and ask God, why is this happening to me? And it just there's not a good answer for why it's happening. There's just not a good answer for this kind of suffering and other things you see. And ultimately what I came to was a verse where the disciples, Jesus asked them during a hard time, do you still want to stick near me? And they say, well, where else would we go? And that's what I came to. Where else would I go? And it was really important to me that this suffering that I went through wasn't meaningless. And the only way that it's not meaningless, if we turn to dust at the end of this life, then my suffering is ultimately meaningless because we just turn to dust at the end. But I think that, we don't know what it is, but somehow in the redemption of suffering in eternity with God, there's something there. It's mysterious. I can't tell you what it is. But I think that there is this, when Jesus died and rose again, he came back with his scars. He showed them the scars where he had been crucified, and the scars weren't wiped away. The pictures of his suffering weren't totally wiped away in the redemption. And so I don't know what it is, but there's something there.
Yeah. No, amen. It's a great testimony. And we're building into it now. So you have, you kind of have this, where some would say normal life beforehand, and everything's going well, and you're having your first baby, you get married, you have your first baby, and then everything kind of crashes. I'm sure in like a movie of it, it would slow down, right? You get the slow motion thing that goes on, and but then you start going to therapy, you start learning to walk again, and I mean this took a while though, right? You couldn't walk for how long?
Yeah. So, I didn't start even wiggling my toes until 3 months or maybe 2 months out. I got some wiggles back and my arm movements back. But I still, even when I went home in September, so June to September, I couldn't sit myself up in bed. I went home in a hospital bed. And I took my first real steps, meaningful steps, probably in January. So it took a good 6 months. And that, I was able to push up and stand in a walker when I left in the hospital, using a lot of my arm strength to do so. Yeah. But it was a good 6 months. And then I say the miracles happened a millimeter a month.
Yeah.
It was just this really slow, laborious process of trying to, your body's amazing. And you can rebuild nerve connections. So the past 6 years has just been the story of trying to rebuild connection. And to this day, I still get little things back. Feeling, or a muscle that wasn't working is now working. And it's just been a lot of prayer and a lot of hard work at physical therapy in the gym.
Yeah. Were there ever times during those 6 months where you thought, or maybe even the doctors might have said, well, you may never walk again? Was that ever a...
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I mean, in the diagnosis, they were like, you could be totally paralyzed. You could wake up and you're fine. And we just didn't know coming out of surgery. And then after surgery, when I felt so completely paralyzed, that was the most terror I felt, was waking up and realizing that I've got nothing out of this surgery. So it was an 8-hour all day surgery to remove the tumor, and waking up and realizing, oh, the worst has happened. I am totally paralyzed. That was pretty horrific. And there were points where I had the thought of like, well, if God doesn't answer our prayers and I never walk and I don't get movement back, where does that leave me? If we're all like, at this point, I think thousands of people are praying for me. And if I don't get that back, God is still good. What does that look like? So I didn't know those first months would I ever stand and walk again. Wow.
And that had to be tough on you and Taylor, right? During that time. And I mean, he was strong and he was posting in different things and everything else. But I mean, that had to be a tough time for you two.
Yeah. He has always been my rock and still my rock, but he would say the darkest day was the day of the surgery, the darkest day of his life. And then followed up by 9 days after I had the surgery, I ended up having blood clots that I had a pulmonary embolism where I coded in front of our whole family. And they didn't know if I was going to make it out of that. And he's just very cool under fire, and he was the best possible person to weather all of this. And just incredible through it. It's hard. He has to be the one who loads all the family stuff in the car, and he has to do a lot more physically in our family.
Sure.
With 3 little kids.
Right. Running around and everything else. And, he's also very upbeat like you are. And so, it's amazing what y'all been able to do as your family and growing and everything. And, whenever you go back to that time, you're learning how to walk and move around, and you get little feelings here and there. And, I just remember watching some of the videos when you first started taking steps, and I got like chills. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. It's happening. And, but I'm sure that even like you said, what did you say? 1 millimeter every day or month?
A month. Yeah.
Yeah. A month. And so it probably felt like very slow process of getting anything done over time. And I wanted to get into some policy stuff in a little bit. It's almost like an act of Congress, right? Like you got to take so long to get this done. Like, come on, God, let's just go.
Yes. Oh yeah. It is like, frustration is too small of a word for it. The feeling of just like, I've never had to experience anything like this where I just had to will my body, like begging my toe to wiggle. Like I would lie in that hospital bed and stare at that toe and be like, come on, wiggle, make a connection, wiggle. And then, that's how every step was like, all right, come on, foot, just like kick a little bit. And that's how getting every muscle to fire, and just the sheer frustration of it was, it was just tiring, and trying to be I was learning to be a mom while doing this too. It just like, this is just a life of toil and struggle. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of though, like when we were in the garden, Adam and Eve being in the garden, and everything was perfect for a while. And then it wasn't after, sin and everything else comes in. And, of course it's different in this situation, but maybe God had this to help strengthen you in some capacity. Because now you probably have more ways of thinking about like what's going to move next compared to what most people would think about, because you're able to have some of those connections and the strength that you were able to build over such a long period of time probably makes you stronger than you were before in some capacity. Like if you start comparing that back then to now, where are you at today? Like, are you able to walk pretty well today and things of that nature?
Yeah. So I had 2 little setbacks that were happy, which were pregnancies.
Yes.
So I stayed in the gym most of my pregnancies and kept at it. But anybody, pregnancy kind of slows you down a little bit.
Yes.
But even through that, I mean, my right ankle returned during my second pregnancy. Like I didn't have full strength. And now coming, off of postpartum, my third pregnancy, I'm able to take away my leg braces. So I don't use leg braces anymore.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm working on, now my next goal is to be able to walk a mile with those like Nordic trekking poles.
Yeah.
So I've done a mile on the treadmill, which is, you have a little more support, but doing it out in the wild is kind of my next frontier. So I just keep trying to set goals to continue, and all of that involves just like strengthening teeny tiny little muscles you forgot you had. And
Rachel, I just read a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a really good book. And he talks about, setting those goals is important, but it's also the systems, the habits that we form to get to those goals. And I wonder from your experience, do you feel like you've gained a lot more systems on, doing things around the house? I mean, it seems like you've had to form a lot of new systems and habits than just a few years ago, right?
And I think, that has been really hard, is being both entering motherhood and disability for me personally, that I was not a systems person before. I kind of prided myself on spontaneity and being able to just like go with it and jump in and figure it out, like leaving
the bucket list
out everything I need. And but now it's like I have to have everything for everyone all the time. And so if I don't think, I tell people like, I can't do something a week out. It's too short notice for me. I need like a month plan for everything.
Yeah.
So I guess you could think of it as, a muscle that I've had to learn. I wouldn't say I'm the best systems person.
Sure.
But it has definitely grown this muscle that I had very little of before.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And you've got a beautiful family and you're continuing to get better. And many people, including me, are still praying for you. So it's been amazing. It's been miraculous and everything else. And I wonder, before we get into some more of the policy stuff though, what would be kind of like your big takeaway if you looked at the arc of, having this kind of bucket list mentality, just one thing after another, to going through and having your first baby and I don't know, what's the main thing that you've taken away from all of that?
Yeah. I think it's that, we should all be expecting this life to be hard and full of suffering. And even, you'd say like, well, what's the point of being a Christian if your life is just hard and suffering like everyone else? And you look at the Bible and it's full of suffering and difficulty. And I would say like leaning into and not running away from or going into, a pit because you're going through something hard. It's that, no, we should all expect that. And think about if you're in a season where you're not going through that, your plan A is going really well, giving a little thought to how would I suffer well? What is the theology of suffering and how would I handle something difficult? And in a way, like leaning into like, I don't think God causes us to suffer, but what can I glean from this? And what gold can I take away?
Yeah. No, I love it. All right. Well, with all that background and everything, thanks for telling your story. I love hearing it, and for the audience as well, and just so much things that you've overcome. It's amazing. And now, kind of in this stage of your life, you've been able to use a lot of this, to your advantage in some way. I mean, I think in some sense, God gave you kind of this superpower to where you already had the state policy network, like you had the connections and everything else that was going on before this, and then you went through this, and now you've been able to experience something that maybe some people were left out or didn't have as many people to voice what they would have liked to have heard that's out there. And you tend to do it more from a free market angle, right? But that there are proper roles for government, especially for those who need it the most. And now you've been working with like Alliance for Opportunity for a while, this Able Americans now. And what do you enjoy working on these days of all the stuff that you're working on?
Yeah. Well, like you, Vance, it's a real joy to be able to take on work that you're passionate about and kind of pick and choose that from a flexible position. I actually had started my consulting business 6 months before all this happened.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had lost my job in a political cycle. And so the member of Congress I was working for had kind of lost her position. I was 12 weeks pregnant when this happened and was like, what? I'm going to become a mom. What do I want my life to look like in this next job? And had some time to think about it. She kept me on kind of part-time. And I was like, I'll try this consulting thing and take on work here and there so I can have more flexibility and freedom in my life. Yeah. And at the time I wrote my tagline, and I feel like my business tagline, the work I've chosen is just really leaned into it, which is advancing freedom and human dignity. So that's kind of my version of your let people prosper.
Yeah.
And so as time has gone, I had corporate clients, I had nonprofit clients, different work, had realized just my passion really is fixing and dignifying the safety net for people who really need it, the most people. And I really think that our safety net, when I say safety net, I'm talking about our kind of public benefits program. I think they've grown to such a level that they're spread so thin that they're not serving the people who truly need them as either a bridge to self-sufficiency, or when we're talking about people with disabilities who need them their whole lives.
Yeah.
They're not serving people well because they have just not been reformed in a very long time, in decades. And then they've been extended to people who really need them as more of a transition and not a lifelong benefit.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I've definitely changed the way that I talk about this stuff, and you helped me with this, or you taught it to me, was more moving from able-bodied. Like we talked about a lot about able-bodied, and this whole discussion right now on Medicaid reform, like who's able-bodied and part of the one big beautiful bill and all that stuff, right? Like there were some good reforms there. But I like the way that you term it is work capable. What do you see in the difference between those two?
Yeah. I mean, I myself am not able-bodied.
Yeah.
But I am work capable.
Yeah.
And so it's tough because, when you talk about disabilities, there are so many different kinds. There are intellectual disabilities, developmental, physical, and everybody's different, right? And so
my dad had epilepsy and had seizures, so that was he was on disability.
Right. And different chronic illnesses just keep you unable to work, right? You're just, some people are not able to work, and it doesn't make them any less valuable or dignified as a person, right?
Yes.
So that's a really important thing to distinguish. But at the same time, there are work contributions across different types of disabilities that people with disabilities bring to the table and bring to businesses. And so, I was just hearing about a woman with Down syndrome who, after she graduated from Clemson University, it was like 3 years, couldn't get anybody to hire her. No employer to hire her. She just wanted to work. And finally, her mom was like, well, then you're going to start your own business, and started this cookie company that now is incredibly successful, has 15 employees of her own now.
Wow.
And including like formerly incarcerated individuals, and given people a chance to work. And so I think, it's not like 40 years ago where everybody with a disability was just like, well, you can't be a part of the community. Now, I think we are starting to realize that no, people with disabilities bring a lot to the workforce. So that's why I really prefer the term work capable over able-bodied when we talk about this.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what's been interesting too is a lot of folks who are work capable, to your point there, have been going back to work. Like we've seen like their unemployment rates going down, labor force participation has been up, especially during this time where there's been some tightness in the labor market where you can argue whether or not people want to work or not and things of that nature, but there have been gaps. And many of them have been filled by those who are work capable over the last few years, right?
Exactly.
You've seen that? Yeah.
Yeah, that I think right before COVID, we saw a real big increase of the highest ever labor force participation of people with disabilities. And I think it's largely because we've moved to this. It used to be, people with disabilities were kind of viewed medically, right? Like kind of medical cases separated from the community. But in the last, 20 years, being more integrated in K-12 education, in classrooms and in life. And it wasn't, okay, we're going to stick people with disabilities over there. It's no, we're going to have people with disabilities integrated in society. And so then when it came time to join the workforce, that integration had already occurred their whole life. And so they're able to integrate into the workforce. So I think that there's still obviously like a lot of work that needs to be done there. And I think COVID supports of it was normal to work remotely. Yeah. And so if you need an accommodation because of a chronic illness or something, Zoom calls aren't weird anymore.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely. And with your work, I know like with the Alliance for Opportunity, there've been different initiatives over time, but one of the big ones has been this one door policy.
Yeah.
Kind of started in Utah and used that over time. But I want to give you an opportunity to explain that one because that one's been a really big, that's been transformational and some states are already using it.
Yes. And so a little bit of background for people who aren't familiar. Vance was there at the beginning of the Alliance for Opportunities forming at Texas Public Policy Foundation with Pelican Institute and Georgia Center for Opportunity, forming this multi-state think tank alliance to come up with some policy solutions to helping people get out of poverty and remove barriers to work. And then as we kind of put together a roadmap, I think we came up with like 45 different state policy solutions. And out of that massive roadmap, what really emerged was we have a broken system. So, we want people to bridge out of dependence on programs into self-sufficiency and work because that's the path out of poverty. But our state systems, the safety net doesn't talk to the workforce side. So if you're trying to help somebody get back to work and get them in training, you have to send them to a different caseworker and hope that caseworker follows up or the person can find the office and fill out the paperwork for that program. And, they end up filling out 6 stacks of paperwork and seeing 5 different caseworkers. And this is really a barrier to a dignified system that helps people get to work, which is what we think, will help them live this flourishing life. And so the basis for other reforms is getting the system fixed. And that is what we call this kind of one door solution. So we've been working across states to break down barriers amongst these programs and integrate them into one house. So it's the North Star is the person who needs help walks into one door. They see one caseworker. That caseworker says, hey, Vance, okay, you need help with food support, childcare. You're a single mom. Yeah, well, you're not a single mom.
Right.
So it comes in, what do you need? You need, childcare assistance, et cetera.
Yeah.
On these programs. And hey, what's your barrier to getting to work? Is it, and they, come back and say, actually, I've got no transportation, so I can't get to my job interview, or I don't even know where to begin with a job interview, or I don't have a path toward a good job that could support my family. And how would I get training for that? Or what jobs are available in my town? And all of that happens in the same system with the same caseworker. And you don't send that person who needs help back on the bus to go find another office and fill out more paperwork and wait 6 months to get an appointment.
Yeah.
Which is just insane. And that's how most states do it now. The state of Utah is the only state that's done it differently. And we've seen amazing results. So COVID and unemployment that every state faced, Utah bounced back very quickly. Within 3 months, got people reemployed and back to work. And some states today have not done that, have not bounced back from unemployment.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And it's been wonderful to kind of see. I remember us doing like the research on this back in the day. Mason Bishop is really big into this. Les Ford, all this. They're fantastic as well. And I've had Les on the show. I need to have Mason on sometime too. But yeah, this one door policy I think is a huge step in the right direction. And someone who's more of a fiscal hawk like myself, I think it also. And I don't want to talk too much about the numbers, but it will also help to save money over time because we're helping people get back to work. And ultimately, that's what it should be about, is the dignity and respect for those individuals that too often our current safety net system doesn't take into account. To your point, these individuals just become a number and just being plopped around from one spot to the next. It's not a dignified system to try to getting people to self-sufficiency. It's just not. And, I know that there were other things that we worked on, empowerment accounts and other issues that are going on. Are there other big items that you see in the policy arena that are helping us move in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in this quote, one big beautiful bill, there is an emphasis on these work requirements in the Medicaid program and the SNAP program that states are going to have to implement. And so I think states implementing this well, that's going to be a big key over the next year and a half, because if states don't help people connect to work and have a system that does that well, then it's going to create a lot of chaos. So I'm hopeful that this creates the incentives for states to get their systems right, to preserve the dollars for the people who really need it, and the people who are work capable can get on a pathway back to work quicker because of this.
Yeah, perfect. I love it, and the alliance now is expanding. How many states are now in the alliance? Because it started off with the 3, like you said, TVPF, Pelican, and Georgia Center for Opportunity. How many are there now?
Yeah, we've got 9 think tanks. There's one national think tank, the Archbridge Institute, and then then that leaves a couple other state-based.
Yeah, sure.
Doing about 9 total groups. Yep.
Yes, great. Okay, fantastic. And so now you're also working with Able Americans as the director there. What do they do, and how will you be helping people in that capacity? And is there some connection between what the Alliance is doing and Able Americans, or is it pretty separate?
Yeah, it's the same world in that it largely focuses on so Able Americans is a think tank project that is coming up with solutions for the problems facing people with disabilities in the policy realm. Okay. And so there's still some kind of civil rights types of things that need to be addressed. Like, for example, air travel, there are not bathrooms for people with disabilities. Right? So think about people on these long haul flights can't use a bathroom for 7 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a real problem.
Yeah, it's not good. No.
So there's still things like that. But then largely the public benefit system for people with disabilities is just so broken that families, spend countless hours a year just navigating how to keep, severely disabled children on these benefits that they desperately need. So like an in-home caregiver, for example, in Medicaid, some states, in Florida, I think it's a 20-something thousand person waiting list.
Wow.
It takes over a decade to get off that waiting list and get a home caregiver. And private insurance doesn't pay for that. That's really only covered by Medicaid. And so there's huge problems like this that unless you have a family member with a disability, you don't know exists. So Able Americans, the Alliance for Opportunity is focused on the whole of the social safety net and workforce programs. Able Americans really focuses on those programs for people with disabilities.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And could some of those policy ideas that worked for Alliance could also still work, right?
Yeah.
But maybe it's more targeted in some capacity.
Yeah, I think the core principles are there of, like, for example, the person first kind of principle of how does this person experience the system, and how do we give them more freedom to choose options? Instead of looking at the caregiving problem, how do you give people more options on how to use Medicaid for caregivers, and instead of having to go through one small managed care system and one long wait list and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, we went through a lot here, and as we're wrapping up some now, what do you see coming next for yourself and for the movement as far as getting more into the safety net types of reforms? I don't know. Where do you see us going? I hate saying 5 or 10 years, but where do you see us going? Because my thing is, Rachel, is I don't like saying 5 or 10 years for myself because I don't know where God's going to have me.
Yeah.
I remember how we used to talk before I went to the White House, and I had no idea that I was going to go to the White House. And then God says, all right, here we go. And then COVID hits, and then I'm heading back to Texas, and all that stuff. But I wonder where you kind of see things going with all this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't make those predictions anymore.
Yeah.
But I think that I see a movement building of not taking it with the status quo to help our most vulnerable in the country. Yeah. And it has been the status quo since these programs were created, basically. And they're not serving people, and people are being left behind. And so I really see momentum building to create a dignified safety net that works for the people who need it, and a bridge off that safety net into self-sufficiency for people who just need it for a short time.
Yeah. Love it. Well, it's been fantastic talking with you today. I'll make sure to put a lot of stuff in the show notes so people can find as well. But thank you for all you're doing. And I'm a huge fan of the Barkleys. You said of me earlier, but I'm a huge fan of the Barkleys. And God bless you. And I'm hopeful that things just continue to improve in your life and for your kids and your family.
Thank you, Vance. Well, always a joy to talk with you. So I appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah, my pleasure. Look forward to seeing you soon. And for the audience, thank y'all for joining us today. We need more opportunities for people to have dignity from work, and we're capable people. There's just so much stuff that I think God has in store for us that we don't often see. And what's great is we have people like Rachel who does see that and can fight through all these different obstacles that are going on. And so I hope you'll not only listen to this, but share with your friends and family. And hopefully they will get something out of it as well. So until next time, God bless you and let people prosper.